Okay, so now let us move on to the parameterization concept. Move on to the parameterization concept. So what is parameterization? So parameterization means we can pass the parameters to the test. We can pass the parameters to the test. And the test will execute multiple times with a different number of inputs or different set of inputs. So the test is same. The test steps are same, but we are repeating the same steps multiple times with multiple sets of data, which is also called as a data driven. Okay, in the data driven testing, what you will do, the test will driven by the data, and the data we will parameterize to the test, which is called as parameterized test. So now we'll see how we can achieve parameterization in Playwright. So first we will see uh, a default parameterization concept where we can specify the data inside the test itself. Inside the same file, we will specify the data. And later on, I will show you how we can specify the data in external files. Like we can use JSON, we can use CSV, or we can use Excel, and the different ways. If you have a small set of data, we can directly keep it inside the test. But if your data is very huge, then we go for external files like CSV, JSON, and Excel. And most of the times, by default, we will use JSON because JavaScript related frameworks or JavaScript based automation tools inbuilt support is there for JSON, and we don't need to install any third-party libraries or components. So inbuilt support is there for JSON. So most of the time we prefer to use JSON as test data file. And the second priority goes to CSV file and third priority goes to Excel file. Okay. Now let us see how we can achieve the parameterization in Playwright. So let me create a new file and I'll name it as paramtest1.spec.ts. I'm going to show you multiple tests so that you can understand. Paramtest1.spec.ts. Right. So inside this, first of all, I'll import test and expect from Playwright. And after that, I will simply write one simple test. Just try to understand this. And this is a simple one single test I'm writing. Okay, this is simple one login test. So what I'm going to do in this particular test. Okay, so just a second. So open this page. So in this particular web page, I have, I just want to find some product. So basically I want to search some product after searching. Okay, so for example, I'm just passing some value in this laptop and say search. And it is displayed some product. So now whenever I search for it, some product name, and I just verify that product related products are displayed here or not. So that is my test. Okay, so what I will do is I will just pass the search item. So where I will pass here, I will pass my search item. Let us say I will pass this as a laptop. And the same element should be present inside the same should be present inside the search. Okay, so let us run the test. I just launched my page and I provided some search text and clicking on the search button, and this particular that command will capture all the products which are matching with the keyword, and then it will pick the first product, and that product contains this particular search keyword or not. It will verify. And I'm ignoring the case. So if you want to ignore the cases, you can just add this parameter additionally. Ignore case equal to true. This is optional. Right. So this is simple test I have written. Now, when I run this test, this is our param test. I will make this as a data driven. Okay, later. So I can say param test1 spec.ts and go to configuration file once again. As of now, the parallel equal to true and the number of workers. We haven't specified the number of workers. So let me make it as 1 by default. Okay. Anyway, if we run parallelly, it will take a depend number of workers, depends on the number of tests. Okay. So now this is simple test I have created, and launching the page, provide the search text, click on the search button and verify the product displayed or not. All right. So I'm just running in the headed mode. So once you run the test, so this is executed only one time. Okay, because only one time executed and my test is passed. Now I want to run the same test multiple times with a different number of keywords or different number of search keywords. Okay. So to do that, I will maintain the search keywords in an array. I will define one array. This is basically a test data. So const search items. So what are the items I want to keep it here is I'm just maintaining a string type of an array. I'm just creating one string type of an array. And inside this array, I will keep all the search keywords. So I have some list of keywords here. So let me put those keywords inside my array. Right. So now I want to pass these values to the test. So first I want to run the test for this laptop, and second time I want to run this for gift card. So third time I will run for smartphone monitor. Sometimes you can find the product, sometimes you may not find the products. And if you are not able to find the products, that particular test will be failed. Okay. Now I want to run the test with multiple parameters. So whenever you want to run the test with multiple parameters, we need to run inside the loop. We have to keep this test inside the loop. So either we can use normal for loop, for off loop, or we can use for each function. So for each function, why? Because this particular function we have to run for each item in the array. For each item in the array. So we have a special function in array for each. Do you guys remember? For each method. For each, like pop, push, we also have a for each method. Okay, similarly. So we can use that also. So there are multiple ways. First, we will start with the normal looping statement. So using loop statement, normal for off loop. For off loop, I'm trying to use. Okay. Now I want to repeat this test multiple times with the different sets of data which we provided in array. Basically, this is an array, right? How we can capture these elements from an array, how we can capture this. Normal, I'm writing one simple for loop here. For how to capture these elements. So from the search items, get one item like this, right? So item of search items. So item can be a const variable. So now this is a loop we can write. So if you want to print the item, you can simply say console.log off, and here you can simply display item. So this loop will print all the items, right? So let me just show you this. So when I run this code, it will return all the items one by one and print it. So now what we need to do is we need to keep this particular test, whatever we created, inside the looping statement, and whatever item we are getting here, that we need to pass inside the fill here and also here. Okay. Now what will happen? The test will be executed multiple times for each item. First, it will capture the laptop item that will be substituted. Click and check it. Second round, I'll get another item and test will execute. Third time, again another item, again it will run. Okay, so this is how we can make it data driven. So now there is a problem in this. So let me run and see. So here I'm just trying to run the test. Param test1 spec.ts headed mode. All right. So now just observe there is a problem. What it is saying, a duplicate test title login test first declared in param test spec.ts. Duplicate test title. What does it mean? So duplicate test title means whenever you have specified or multiple tests, each test should have a different name. Okay, so here I have put login test. When I run the test a second time, that time also the same name will be there. In third time also same name. Fourth time also the same name. So if you run the test 5 times, all 5 times you are having the same name. That is not allowed. So that is becomes a duplicate. Okay, by default, even though if you run the test multiple times, depends on the number of parameters, the Playwright will consider we are running 5 different tests. 5 tests we are running actually, not a single test. Even though it is a single test, depends upon the number of inputs. Playwright will consider this as a 5 tests. So when I consider as a 5 test, each test should have a different name. So that is the reason if you hard coded the name here, that will be duplicated. So it cannot repeat multiple times. So now this name should be dynamic. That name should be dynamic. So every round of run, we have to provide the different name. So first round of the test, we need to provide one name. Second round, we need to provide another name. So in each round, we have to specify the different name. So to make it happen, whatever item you're capturing, we can just put that item here in the curly brace like this. Because we are just getting the value of the item inside, and also I'm using this backtick operator. So not a single or double quote. If I put a double quote or single quote, the value cannot be substituted. See, if I put like this again, it will be duplicated. Why? Because the value of the item cannot be substituted here. So only if you put this entire statement inside the backlit operator, then only the value will be captured inside the item. Now the item will be captured. So first time item is laptop. So the login test, I say, so this is not a login test. It is a search test. So I say search test for the laptop. Second round, what could be the title? Search test for gift card. Next time, search test for smartphone. Search test for monitor. So every time this title will be changing. So this time we don't have any problem now. So let me try to execute the test now. So let's see how many times it will execute. So I'm just specify 4 items, 4 different search keywords, and the test will be executed 4 times. Right. Just observe this 4 tests are 1 worker. 4 tests, 1 worker. So it is basically running in the serial mode. See, 4 times it is opening the page and searching for the keywords. So 4 times done. So only monitor, we don't have a products. All right. So now you can look at this 4 times executed the same test. Now we can see search test for smartphone, search test for gift card. So for these 3 search keywords, my test is got passed. For monitor, it could not find the option in the search items. So when I search for monitor, we don't have a products for that. So when I click on the search, we don't have a products here. So there are no products. So that is the reason my test is got failed. So what we have done here is we have just rerun the same test multiple times. So not rerun, we have repeated the same test for multiple options by using looping statement. So this is one approach. This is one approach. Using looping statement, we can repeat the same test multiple times for multiple sets of data. Now, so there is another approach. So using function. So using for each function. Using for each function, we can do that. So using for each function, we can do that. So let me comment this code first of all. All right. So how to use for each? What the for each will do? So we will run the same test for each item which is present in the search item. So how we can use for each function? Using array. So let me take search items dot for each. Yeah. Now what are the parameters it will take? It will take item or index as a parameter. Item or index. So I will put suppose item here. So this is actually an item of the element. So from the search item, it will take the first item and we need to pass an arrow function. So the for each function will take an arrow function as a parameter. So that item I will keep inside this function and write the arrow function like this. Right? So now this is a syntax using for each. So suppose if you just print console.log of item. So what this will print actually? So from the search item, first it will take the first item and it will print. Second round, it will take the second item and then it will print. Third time, another item, it will print. But instead of printing, I will execute this particular test inside the for each. So the same item again we substituted here. We substitute in the fill method and also we are using in the validation. So this is how we need to do. if you are using for each. Now what will happen? For each item, the test will be executed. So for each function won't return anything. It returns just a void. So for each item in an array, the test will be executed. So this is another way to run the test multiple times. Let's run it once again. All right, so it is launching my page. So 3 search items, we found the products, but only 1 search item, you could not find the product. So for that, the test is got failed. So monitor is got failed. Okay, so this is fine. And another thing, here, how many tests we are running actually? As per the Playwright, how many tests we are running? Depends on the number of items. See, number of values. So we are passing 4 values. Now Playwright will consider this is the 4 tests, not a one single test. So we have written only one single test, but it is running 5 times or 4 times. So Playwright will consider them as a 4 test. So can we put them in the describe block? If you have a multiple test, can we put them in the describe block? Yes. So if you want to add a describe block, for example, the test I want to make it as a part of describe block. Then you can also include the describe block inside the outside the function, not inside the function. So this whole thing I can put inside the describe block. So how we can write it? So to write in the describe block, I can just comment this for now. So we can also write a describe using describe. I can put a same test, but I want to put inside the describe. So how we can write the describe test dot describe, and this is searching items. I'm just giving some name and asynchronous arrow function. And this is a describe block. So inside the describe, we can put n number of tests. Now I will keep this particular test. So whatever I have put this, the entire thing I will keep inside the describe block. Okay, so now from the search item, it will take each item and the test will execute. And a second time also it will execute, third time, fourth time. But all the tests are belongs to on which block? Only one block, describe block. So this is, we can consider as a one group. Now I want to run this. So you can directly run the describe group, or else you can directly, if you just specify the file name, it will by default directly run all the tests. So this is another way. So you can also put the same thing inside the describe. You can see 4 tests, 1 worker. 4 tests and 1 worker. And basically it is running in serial mode. Done. So this is the last item, search item. It is not matched and this is got failed. Okay. So this is how we can do parameterization in Playwright. If you have a small set of data, you can specify the data like this in the form of an array. Okay. Now, so let me show you another test. And later I will show you how we can maintain the data in the external files. So let me show you another test. So create another new file and param test2.spec.ts. Okay. So this time I will try to automate the login and my data is different. So my test data is different. So let me login in the sense, what are the details we will have? Email and password, right? So I will maintain some data here. This time I will take 2-dimensional array. 2-dimensional array means we have a rows and columns. Now you can see this is one record set and this is another record set. This is another and this is. So if I look at the first one, this is the email ID. And when I pass this email ID password, this is a valid data. My login should be successful. And this is the email ID. This is the invalid data. Maybe the password or email, whatever. It is invalid data. And my test should be failed. Login should be unsuccessful. And similarly, this is also invalid data. The login should be unsuccessful. The last one is also blank username and blank email, blank password, which is also invalid. my test should be unsuccessful. So I'm passing 4 different data sets. Only in one combination of data, my login should be successful, and the rest of the time my login should be failed. That's what expectation. That's what. If I pass invalid data, if my login is successful, what does that mean? My data is invalid, but login is successful. It is a bug, right? That is a failure. So we will try to cover all the combinations here. Listen carefully. Very important. So how we can achieve this? So I will show you different combinations. Let's say I have valid data or invalid data I'm taking. So my data is valid, my data is invalid. For example, my data is valid. Okay, I'm doing login, and here also with the login, I'm doing with invalid data. So valid data, login is successful. What does it mean? Login valid data, login successful means my test is passed. So valid data, login is unsuccessful. Data is valid, but login is unsuccessful. What does it mean? My test is failed. This is one combination. Positive and negative input, both we need to cover. Similarly, take invalid data. I'm passing invalid data, but login is successful. What does it mean? With invalid data, login is successful means what? My test failed. And invalid data, login is failed means what? My test is passed. Okay. So these are the combinations we have to cover. First, we need to know this particular data which is valid or not valid. So from where we'll get this information? From the test data itself. So the test data itself will say this is valid or invalid. So if the data is valid, then what I should do verify? The login is passed or not. So login is successful, then my test is passed. Even though the data is valid, but login is unsuccessful, then I will mark my test as a failed. So data is invalid, the login is failed or login is unsuccessful, then I can mark my test is failed. Data is invalid, my login is unsuccessful, then I can mark my test is passed. So negative testing and positive testing, both we need to cover as part of data driven. So let me add this login test. So let me take this is the data currently I prepared. So you can prepare your own data or else you can use the same data, no problem. So among the 4 inputs, only the first one is valid, rest of them are invalid. Okay. So now let me try to write the simple test for now. Test. So I say this is login test. First we'll implement the login test and then we will make it as a data driven. This is a synchronous function. I'm taking page picture and then arrow function. So this is simple test I'm going to create. So I already have some test. Let me write inside this. Okay, so this is a test I'm going to explain what exactly it is. Just try to understand this. First, you will understand the logic and then we will try to implement this. Okay, so I just launched my page and I will provide some email ID here in the email address. So let's say I'm taking valid, for example. Take the URL. So try to understand the logic. Same thing we will repeat for JSON file, Excel file, CSV file, everywhere. Same test I'll try to repeat. So here I'm passing a valid email address. So valid email and then valid password and clicking on the login. And once I successfully login, I just verifying the logout is present here or not. If the logout is present means what? My login is successful. That is one scenario. For example, if the login is not successful, suppose I'm providing some invalid email ID, password. Then if login is unsuccessful, then I will verify this message. Login was unsuccessful. Okay, based on this, I will consider. Now, if I go back and see, this is an email. Here we need to pass email address. Let's say some abc@gmail.com, something. And here I'm passing some password, test at the rate 1. So login we are clicking. And this is a very important step, guys. This is the main logic we are validating. Both we will cover positive and negative input. Both we have to cover. Okay, so here later I will pass this validity value that will come from the test data. So for example, if the data is valid, okay, this condition will verify. If the data is valid, do you guys remember what are the things we need to validate? So if the data is valid, login should be successful. Login should be successful. How we will confirm the login is successful or not? The logout should be present. So if the data is valid here, I'm getting the logout link. I'm checking whether it is visible or not. Okay, so if the data is valid, I'm verifying the logout link is present or not, visible or not. Okay, so when this will pass, data is valid, the logout is also present, then my test will pass. For example, data is valid, but this logout is not present, then this assertion will definitely fail. And this will make my test mark it as a failed. Same assertion will taking care of failure case and passing case. And when we need to consider this only if the data is valid. Suppose if the data is invalid, then else block will execute. In else block also we need to do. So if the data is invalid, what we are expecting, the error message on the page we are expecting. So this XPath will capture the error message. Login was unsuccessful. This is a CSS actually. So let's capture the CSS and check it. The error message I'm capturing from the web page if the login is unsuccessful. So we are capturing this whole thing. So if the data is invalid, we are capturing the error message and that should be present. Error message should be visible. Then my test will pass. And also another assertion I put. If the login is not successful, still it is there in the login page itself, right? It won't go to the dashboard. Still it is remains in the same login page. That is another assertion I have added. Suppose if the data is invalid, login is successful, then this assertion will fail. Even this assertion also will fail. So is it covered all the combinations? Yes, we covered all the combinations. If the data is valid, login is successful, my test passed. If the data is valid, the login is unsuccessful, then my test failed. So if the data is invalid, login successful, my test failed. If the data is invalid, login unsuccessful, then my test will pass. So all four combinations have covered with the single if else condition. Okay, this is a implementation of the test. Now, most important thing is we need to run this test with multiple sets of data. This is the whole test we need to run with multiple sets of data. Okay, so how to run the test with multiple sets of data? Can you put this in the describe block? Because this is a whole test will run multiple times. We can put in the describe block also, right? So let me put in the describe block. And this is the best practice. Whenever you are running multiple tests, better to keep inside the describe. So here I'm giving some name. Say login data driven test. And here I'm writing one asynchronous function and pass a page fixture arrow function. So this is the describe block. So test.describe. Right. So now I will keep this everything. So test. Again, we will run the test in multiple times. We need to write a looping statement also. Okay. Before keeping this in the describe block, I will put inside the looping statement. So this time we have a multiple rows. Remember this. So previously we have individual values in the array, but this time this is the two-dimensional array. And also we have a multiple row. So this is one row and this is second row, third row, fourth row. And if I look at the first row, this is also single dimensional, right? This is single value. This is another value. This is another value. So this is again an array. This is another array. This is another array. So this is another array. So two-dimensional array contains a multiple rows. Each row considered as a one single dimensional array. Okay. So now I will repeat this test inside the looping statement. So how we can write a looping statement? So I'm using for off loop because for each loop works only with the single dimensional array. Now let me run this. For what is the name of an array? Login test data. So here I put login test data of. Okay, so first let me write a looping statement of, and here I'm keeping one something like say, okay, so suppose if I say put const data, then what will happen? So from the login data, first it will read the entire row that will be stored inside the data. So what is the data here? The data is representing the entire array, which contains the three elements. Okay. So from the login data, we are capturing the first data set. So which is having three inputs. So the first input, second and third input. Again, if you want to access these inputs from the data, how we can access? Again, data of 0, data of 1, data of 2. So by using index, we can access. So that is a one way which we have. But there is another shortcut way we have here is, instead of specifying the variable, we can directly specify one bracket, because bracket is representing single dimensional. Single bracket is representing single dimensional array. Now I will capture these three details in three different variables. For example, I want to capture my email into email variable, comma. I will capture the password into another variable called password, comma. I will capture this valid or invalid field into validity, like that. This is another shortcut which we have. So from the login test data, we are reading the first row data first, and all three details we are storing into three different variables. And later we can access email password validity directly. Individually we can access them. So this is the way. So now I will put this test, entire test, inside the for loop. Okay, so inside the for loop. So now the for loop contains the test. So this test will execute multiple times. Okay, the test will execute in multiple times. Again, so before keeping the test directly in the for loop, I will put that in the describe block first. Okay, I will put this inside the describe block. So this is my describe block, asynchronous. And here I don't think the page is required. I can just remove the page. Arrow function. So now I'll put the test inside the describe block first. So this is the complete block. So describe block contains a login test actually. So now I will put the entire thing along with the describe block inside the looping statement. So this is how we will do that. So now if I look at this, this is my test data. For loop is got started. Inside the for loop, I have a test describe block. Inside the describe block, I have a test block. Now we need to do some customizations. So we are reading the data from the login test data, email password validity separately, and a describe block, we can have a same name, but in the test block, so can we have hard coded the name for the test here? No, the title of the test should be dynamic because this will run multiple times. Each time the title should be different. Each time the title will be different. So now I will try to change my title. So login test for, and I will put the title in the backlit operator so that I can grab the email and password from the looping statement. So login test for email and use a dollar sign and password. Okay, because if you just print that as part of the title, so the title becomes a dynamic. Title becomes a dynamic. So now you can see this become the title. First time login test for email ID will be substituted and then password. Second time email ID password is got changed. Third time again changed. Fourth time again changed. So now this title will be dynamic. Now, whatever the data we are capturing here, I try to pass the same data into the test. So validity, we are already passing in the for loop. So that we are going to use it here. Validity. Okay, so same variable, whatever variable. So this is spelling mistake. Validity I'm using here for comparing purpose. And where we have to pass this email here inside the email box. And password, I will pass inside the password box. This is the password. That's it. So do we need to do any other changes? No. Everything is done. So now we have completed our test. So this time we are passing email ID, password along with the valid or invalid field. So when you pass this particular for loop will repeat multiple times. Each time the test will execute with the different sets of data. Okay. Now I'm passing some of the valid data. Some of them are invalid data. Let me run the test. Go to the terminal and run the test. This is param test 2.spec.ts. And now 4 tests, 1 worker. You can just observe. Only first one is valid, successfully logged in. And from the second one onwards, all are invalid. So definitely it will fail. Yeah. Now you can see all are passed. Why all are passed? We are expecting 3 should be invalid. Those 3 should be failed, right? But why 4 are got passed? Can you guess? So why 4 are got passed? I have shown you the combinations. So if you pass valid data, login is successful, that is passed case. Okay, fine. But when you pass invalid data, also it is get passed. Why it is passed for invalid data? Why it is passed for invalid data? Because login was unsuccessful. If you pass invalid data, login is unsuccessful. What does that mean? My test passed, right? I passed invalid data, but login is unsuccessful. That is what we are expecting, right? The data is invalid, login is unsuccessful means what? Our test is passed. That's the reason rest of the 3 are got passed according to the validations. That's what I said very clearly. Here we are covering the both positive as well as a negative combination of tests. Okay. So even though the data is invalid, we passed. If the login is successful, then it might be failed. But when you pass invalid data, login is not successful. That means indirectly our tests are passed. So that's how we have implemented this logic. Okay, understood everyone? Now 4 tests are got passed means login is successfully working with valid data and also invalid data. So when you pass valid data, login is successful. When you pass invalid data, login is unsuccessful. Both positive and negative testing is working fine. Okay, so this is how we can achieve the data-driven testing. We can parameterize the data to the test. Okay, understood everyone? So this is all about parameterization. And in the previous example and this example, we have put the data in the same file, right? Wherever we have written the test on the same file, we specify the data. And if you have a small set of data like this, you can put them in the same file. But sometimes if you have data, a very large size of data, then you can put that in the external files, like we can use JSON, CSV or Excel. Okay, so now I'll show you how we can do parameterization through external files. So far everything is clear. Please confirm in the chat box before moving further. So how we can do the data-driven testing? Understood the process? So using looping statement, we can achieve everything. All right. So now let us repeat the same test for external files. Let's say I will maintain the same data in JSON file or CSV file or Excel file. Then how we can read the data from those files, external files. So first priority as always goes to JSON. If the data is in JSON format, so JavaScript and TypeScript by default support JSON. So built-in support is there. So we don't need to install any third-party components or libraries. So we can do it. So first let us start with the JSON. Then I will show you CSV and Excel also. Let's close this. Now let's create another test. Param test 1, 2 we already done. So param test 3 using JSON -JSON dot spec dot ts. Param test 3 -JSON dot spec dot ts. Okay, so let us see how we can achieve this using JSON file. Okay, so whatever we have done in the previous example, same thing I will copy. We no need to change any logic. Only thing is we need to maintain this data in the external file, and we need to write some additional logic to read the data from the JSON file. So that is extra thing we will write, but the rest of the thing is same. I'm just copying the same code here and also import the package. Okay, so till here everything is clear, but we need the data, right? And the data should be part of JSON file that we have to read. So we will create a separate folder where I will maintain the test data. So here in the project itself, I'm creating the new folder, and all the test data files I will maintain inside the folder. So like JSON file, Excel file, CSV file, and so on. Okay, so now I have one data file here. So data.json, I'm just copying this inside my test data folder. Okay, so here it is. So here I will copy this. Okay, so now this is data.json. If I look at this, this is my JSON format of data. Again, this is JSON array. It is started from here and here. This is my first record, second record, third record, and fourth record. So this is a JSON format, right? So now I want to run the test for each record which is specified in the JSON file. So this is my test data file. Okay, now go back. So the test is same. We don't need to change anything. But now the main important thing, how to read the data from JSON. How to read data from JSON. So for that, because we are dealing with some external file, so we need to import some module called FS module. I think we have discussed this in the previous classes somewhere when you're working with the files. So import FS from FS. So this module is required. So here FS is basically a built-in module in TypeScript and JavaScript. From that we are importing FS. And because this FS is required to store a file and so on. So let me use that. Okay, so before running all the tests and everything, we need to grab the data from the JSON file, from the data.json. So how to grab this data? First thing, we need to get the path of the JSON. So reading data from JSON. How to get the path? Simple, create one variable, const, I say JSON path equal to, and wherever that file exists, we need to provide that path. So if you want to grab the file path, you can just right click on JSON and you can just copy relative path, and that you can specify here. So this is my file, and instead of using backward, use forward slash. If you are working on Mac, you need to use backward. On Windows, forward slash. So this is my file. Okay, now we need to read this data. To read this JSON data from this particular file, we have to use a special class called JSON, which is again built in TypeScript and JavaScript. Inside this, we have a method called parse. We need to parse the JSON file. So at the time of parsing the JSON file, we need to use this particular FS module. FS dot, we have a method called read file sync. Read file sync. And here we can specify the JSON path. So whatever path we capture, that you can pass. And the read file sync will take two parameters actually. One is a file path. Second one is UTF. UTF we have to specify. So UTF we need to specify. So what is UTF? Unicode transformation format. So whenever you're dealing with JSON or CSV file, this UTF should be 8. Okay. So the second parameter should be UTF 8. And comma. In the single quote, we can specify single or double quote as small characters. UTF hyphen 8. So UTF, again, we have two categories, UTF 16 and 18. So most of the time we prefer UTF 8. Okay, so this is a one single command. So JSON is a predefined class. Inside this, we are calling parse method. This will take this whole thing is a parameter fs.read, and we are doing multiple things one single statement actually. So if you want to store this another variable, you can create another variable that you can put inside the parse method. So I just combine into one single statement. So fs.read file sync, JSON path, and UTF-8. So what this statement will do, this statement will actually return the login data from JSON file. On which format? In the array format. In the array format, it will read. So if I put this in the parse, so this is basically return any. So not an array, it will basically return any type. So that variable we should define with any. Any is a type. Okay. So remember this step. So these two steps will read the data from the JSON. Only two steps you can easily note down somewhere. If you are not able to remember, you can just note down somewhere. Wherever you need to read the data from JSON, you can use it. Simple. So first we need to specify the path, and you can pass the path inside the particular file, fs.read file sync path and utf-8. So this command will completely read the data from JSON and put everything in the login data. And now what is the login data type? It is a any. Basically the data is written in the array format. It can be single or two-dimensional, whichever format it is. But why it is any? Because sometimes it can be single dimensional, sometimes it can be two-dimensional. We don't know, right? So that is the reason they put any here. But obviously the login data contains the data in the array format, right? So now come to the actual looping statement. This is a main test. So this is a main test. So whatever the login data we captured here, from the login data, we are reading email password validity fields one after another. And same email password validity fields we are using inside the test. So here, and validation is also same. Everything is same. So we no need to do any changes. Okay. So this is the process of reading the data from the JSON file. So we are getting the JSON data in the form of an array. Once you get it, we can pass this login data in the looping statement and continue the rest of the things. That's it. So let's run the test. Now the data will be taken from the JSON file. We are not hard coded any data in the test. So if you have a huge data like that, you can use an external file. Okay. Fine. So go back to the terminal and run the test once again. So param test3 hyphen JSON spec.ts and headed mode I'm running. Yeah. So now we got some failure here. Right. So in the for loop, we specified something here. Go back for const email password validity of login data. And we put this where we put this, just a second. It is simply saying no test found. Again, there is the same problem. No test found means it could not find the test. And we can put this describe for loop should be part of the describe block, guys. Okay, for loop should be part of the describe block. So we have done opposite way. So what I will do is I just remove this describe block outside of the for loop. Okay. So this is closed for the test, and this is closed for the, this is actually closing for the test. This is closing for the loop, and another thing is for required for describe. And there is something is missing again. So this is one more bracket is missing here. So describe block, login test data driven test. This is my asynchronous function. Array should be here and opening brace. And let me just close this brace. Okay, now we'll put everything in the describe block. So let's keep it everything in the describe block. So this is my describe block. So inside this, I will keep everything. Okay, so now the test will be running multiple times using for loop. So that is a part of the describe block. Okay, so now let's run the test once again. So now 4 tests are running with one worker. And this time data is reading from the JSON file. And we are expecting all should be passed. So 4 tests are got passed. Okay. So this is the procedure, guys. So JSON, we don't need to worry about it because this is the built-in support which we have in JavaScript and TypeScript. Even the JavaScript is also same procedure, same module, same code will work for JavaScript also. Okay. This is a way we can read the data from JSON. This is more preferable most of the times. Even when you do the API testing also using Playwright, we maintain the data in JSON file itself. So now let's see the CSV file, Excel file quickly. And small change we need to do. For CSV Excel file, we don't have a built-in support. So we need to install a third-party module for CSV as well as Excel. So let me show you how we can work with the CSV and Excel. Let us start with the CSV. So CSV means what? The values will be separated with comma. So I will create one file here. So I have one CSV file. So data.csv. I'll keep that inside the test data folder. Right. So this is my CSV file, data.csv. Now the data is like this. You can also open in Excel file. It will show in the rows and columns. But if I open CSV file directly, even in the Notepad or Notepad++, the data looks like this. So the first row is basically email, comma, password, comma, validity, header. This is actual data. This is also data. And last one is empty. So this is the data currently we have. And basically CSV file, the data will be separated with the commas. That is the most important. Now we will read the data from the CSV file. So by default, there is no support for CSV in TypeScript or JavaScript. So we have to install a third-party library for CSV. So to install third-party library for CSV, go to the terminal. So there is a command which we need to npm install. So all npm node package modules we can install using npm command. So npm and install. We have a command. We have an option called csv parse. CSV parse. So this will download CSV parser through which we can parse the CSV file and we can grab the data. Okay. Now let us try to install this npm install CSV parse. So once you run the command, it will start installing CSV parser. It will start installing CSV parser. So now it is successfully installed. So this is a prerequisite. Okay. And then we have already test data file also, data.csv. Now let us create the test. So new file, param test. So we already created 3. So let's say this is param test 4. Param test 4 -csv dot spec dot ts. Again, same thing, whatever we have done in the previous done. So yeah, so param spelling mistake, just a second, csv spec dot ts. Okay. Now, whatever the test we have done using this, I'm just copying the same stuff. Slight changes we have to do. We already installed CSV module, right? Okay, so this part we have to change. The rest of the thing is exactly same. We need to do small modifications, but this part we have to change majorly. This one we need to change majorly. Okay, so this time we have to read the data from what? CSV file. Okay, so how we can read the data from CSV file? So we already installed module, right? So I will just put here. Later you guys can install it. Okay. So we need to install npm install csv-parse. This is a prerequisite to work with the CSV file, right? And rest of the thing is same we have imported. And one more module we have to import from CSV parser. That is import parse. This is the module we have to import. So parse we have to import from CSV parser, which we have already installed. CSV-parse/sync. Okay, this is the package which you have to import from this module, CSV parse sync. This is the additional step we need to do. Okay. Now, so how to read the data from CSV? First thing, we need to specify the path. Const CSV path equal to, and where is our CSV? So inside the test data, we maintain the CSV file, data.csv, copy relative path, and then specify here using forward slash. Okay, now this will read this is the path which is representing CSV file. Now, how to read the content from the CSV file? So to read the content from the CSV file, we use this fs module. First, fs dot, again, same method we have used it for JSON also. What is that method? Read file sync. Read file sync. Here, the first parameter is obviously CSV path. Second parameter is again UTF. We need to specify for CSV also. UTF-18. Sorry, UTF-8. So this particular method will return the content from the CSV file that we are storing into a variable called const, I say, file content. Okay. So this command will read the content from the CSV file that we are going to store inside the file content. And remember one more important thing. File content is nothing but what? Not individual records. File content is nothing but the whole content of the CSV file. The content is nothing but a whole content from the CSV file. So from the whole content, we have to grab each and every line in the form of records. So this each line is considered as one record. So we need to parse it. We need to get each and every line as a one record from the entire content. So from the file content, we need to grab line by line. So for that, we have to parse this file content. So to parse this file content, we use one module called parse. Inside this, we need to first pass it the file content parameter and comma, and two options we need to set. One option, if I look at the JSON format CSV data, we need to split them into rows and columns. Like this is email, all emails are comes under one column. Passwords are comes under another column. Invalid and valid comes under another columns. So we need to make the columns true. Here, columns, value true. And if there are any empty lines, we need to skip them. So sometimes you may see some empty lines in this content. So we can skip that. So to skip that, we can pass another parameter, comma, skip empty lines. Also make it as a true. This is a mandatory step, guys. Okay, true. And after completion of this, you can close. So this is the actual command. So this command will read the file content and gives you all the records, and that we are going to store in another variable called const records. This is the actually we want. So this is the one we need to actually want. So records. Okay, this is a little bit tricky and very difficult to remember, but you can have this code with you, and whenever it is needed, you can reuse the same code. Okay, so you have to write like this. And if you want to write this in multiple lines, you can just keep this in the next line also, like this. Columns true, and skip lines is also true. So these are the two parameters. And here it is closed, a bracket is closed here. So this is the first parameter. This is the second parameter. We need to pass inside the parse, and this will actually returns the records from the CSV file inside the records folder. So now how to grab the data from the records, individual records, email, password, and so on. Now come to the main test. So in the main test, so to grab the data from this records, specify that inside the looping statement, go to this is a describe block as it is. In the looping statement, specify the number of records. So whatever the data we captured inside the records, specify here. From the records, we need to read individual data one after another. So from the records, we should not put array now. We should put just a variable, because this won't return the data in the array format now. This won't return the data in the array format. So we need to say just normal variable. So from the records, Records is basically any. So we cannot put an array here. So from the records, first get the first data record. From the data, we need to extract data individually. So like email, password, validity. So what we need to do now to extract individual values from the data, go here, data dot email. That's how we need to access the data from CSV. Similarly, from data dot password. Okay. And similar validity also, data dot validity, like that. So even here also, we can just say data dot email and data dot password. So by using keys like email, password, and validity, the keys, based on the keys, we can access, because this data, password, validity is the first column. You can see first row. So the first row is acting as a keys actually. So by using the key, we can extract the data. So first round of execution from the records, first row will be returned into the data. Now we will execute the entire code for the data. Second round, another record. Third round, another record. So once the for loop is completed, it will read all the lines from the CSV file. So this is the procedure, guys. So we no need to change any code except the data, except the array. So this time it is not returning an array. So we need to follow another approach. Okay. So this is the code which we have to write to read the data from CSV file. Now, so let us run this. I'm just closing my CSV file. Go back and then execute. Param test 4. This is CSV spec.ts and header mode. So 4 test, 1 worker again. So now this time the data is reading from CSV file. Okay, now done. So all 4s are successfully executed and passed. Okay, so as I said, this is a little bit tricky stuff, so you cannot remember. So have this code with you, and whenever you want to read the data from CSV files, you can use this piece of code. Same reusable code. So once you get the records, from the records, you can access the data. From the data, you can access email, password, and whatever data is available in CSV, you can specify that. And rest of the code is exactly same. Okay. So this is all about CSV file, how to read the data from CSV file and parameters to the test. Finally, Excel file. So to read Excel file, there are so many approaches are there. Different packages are available in the market for Excel. So some people will use JXL, especially people who are working with the JavaScript. And apart from that, there is another module which we have called XLS. So normally what will happen is by default, JavaScript and TypeScript will support JSON format, right? So ultimately we have to make sure the data is in the JSON format. So if I have a JXL, this is one package which we have, so which is JXL. So when I use this package, we will get certain classes, methods, and everything. So here we will directly work with the Excel file. So we'll read rows, columns, everything. And this is a little complicated process. Only for data-driven testing we are using. So instead of doing this, because we already have a JSON built-in support in JavaScript and TypeScript, so what we need to do, whatever data we have in Excel, we will convert that into JSON format. So we will pass the Excel data into JSON, and once the data is available in JSON, again we can follow the same approach. Because JSON is a built-in support which we have in the TypeScript and JavaScript. So to parse Excel to JSON, we have a external module, XLSX module. So we need to install this module. So once we install this module, we can easily convert this Excel into JSON. We can pass the data is in Excel format only. So we'll read the data from Excel and put inside the JSON format, and we will read the data in our test. So we can use this particular approach. Even in API testing also, whenever you're working with Excel, try to use this XLSX module directly. Okay, now, so let me show you that approach. So how we can do the data driven using Excel. So to work with an Excel, we have to install again some third party module. So what is that module? npm install npm install xls x. So once you install this module, you will get certain number of classes and methods. So 9 packages and successfully installed. So you can ignore this one. So once it is installed, now we can start working with the Excel. So now we'll put the data in Excel format. So I already have some data in XLS format. If I open this Excel, so this is my data. Same email addresses, password. Well, and here I have empty, and don't put empty cells like that. What you need to do is you can just place the cursor. You can just have one single quote here. So when you put the single quote, then what happens is that will be treated as one cell. Otherwise, it won't read the empty cells. Okay, so this is invalid. So blank email, blank password, invalid. So this is my test data file. Now I want to read the data from Excel and use it in our automation test. Now close my Excel and I will keep this Excel file inside my test data folder. So select the test data. Inside this, keep that file. Okay, now my test data file is, you cannot directly open here, and if you want to open, go to the required location and you can open directly, right? So now let me show you how to read this data from Excel file. And again, I'm doing the same test. Create the new test. Param test 5 or 6. Param test 5. So new file, param test 5 using XLS dot spec dot ps. Okay, so now whatever we have done for CSV file, exactly the same process, but the loading Excel files will be different. So now I copied the same code and try to remove this part. So now we want to get the data from the XLS file. So what is the prerequisite? The prerequisite is we need to install XLS library using this command npx install XLS. Okay, so now we'll import a certain package. This package is not there in XLS. We can just remove this, right? So rest of the things are exactly the same. The only thing is just we need to load XLS file. Oh, now we'll see how to load the XLS file and how to grab the data. So before doing that, we need to import all the packages from XLS because we don't know exactly which module we require from XLS. So we need to say star representing all the modules will be imported from XLS. Okay, now we need to load the Excel file. So first step is what? We need to specify the location. So where is the location? Const path Excel path equal to. So I'll take some more time, guys, today, another 5 to 10 minutes, and then we will finish this concept so that you will have more time to practice during weekend. Okay. So Excel path, and where is my Excel file? Test data slash data dot xlsx. So this is my file. Now we need to read this. So to read the Excel data, we have to use this XLS module. So first, what does an Excel contains? Excel is basically a file, right? So Excel file contains a workbook. The workbook contains a multiple sheets. Every sheet contains a rows and columns. So this is the hierarchy of the Excel. Where we need to start, we need to grab the workbook from the Excel. So remember this is the hierarchy of the Excel. First Excel file contains a Excel workbook, and workbook contains the sheets, and from the sheets we can grab the rows and columns. Okay, this is the hierarchy. It's very easy. Let me show you. So to grab the workbook from the file, so this path is already representing the file. Now we need to grab the workbook from the file. So the command is xlsx dot read file, and here we need to specify the path, Excel path. Okay, so this will actually return the workbook of the Excel that I'm going to store in a variable called const workbook. I'm creating variable. Now, from this workbook, we need to grab all the sheets first, all the sheets. So workbook dot, there is a method called sheet names of 0. We need to pass an index is 0. It will basically return all the sheet names from the sheet. So means whatever the working sheets are available in the workbook, that will be written, and we can store them in a variable called sheet name. And now we need to extract the specific worksheet from the sheet names. Then what we can do, sheet names. From the sheet names, we have to extract the exact name, exact sheet name. We need to provide that. So from the workbook, we can extract the sheets. So again, one more time, workbook dot sheets, workbook dot sheets, and here we can provide the sheet name. So whatever sheet names we grabbed, we can provide that. So this will actually return the worksheet. Const worksheet. This is a procedure, guys. Okay. First get the Excel path and then read the workbook and get all the sheets and pass the sheet names and get the exact worksheet. So once we get a worksheet, we will able to grab the data. So now here the process will start. So we have just loaded Excel file here. Loaded Excel file. And we need to convert that Excel file into JSON format. So to convert this into JSON format, convert sheet. We already grabbed the worksheet here, right? So this worksheet we have to convert into JSON. Convert to sheet into JSON. So to do that, again, we have to use same XLS. We have a method called utils. Inside the Excel, we have a predefined method called utils. Again, inside this utils, we need to call another method called sheet underscore to underscore, on which format we want to convert JSON. You can see it is supported multiple formats. So which format we have to get, even CSV format also we can convert, Excel to CSV, Excel to HTML, Excel to text. JSON we want, so JSON I'm selecting. And here we need to pass the worksheet parameter. That's it. So this is a final step, guys. So this will actually get the data from the worksheet converted into JSON. So we can store that in a variable called const login data. Const login data. That's it. So what is the type of this login data is again any type. Okay, this is a procedure of loading the Excel data into the JSON format. So once we got the data in the login data, any format, same procedure. So previously how we have done this main test, copy this. Because once the data is available in the JSON format, we can reuse the same thing. So login data, you can specify here. So this is the login data. Okay. And one more important thing, guys. There is a one difference. In the previously, we have used JSON format, right? So when you read the data from the JSON format, and what is the format here? Any format. Any in the sense, again, this is an array format basically. So we use this array like this. At the time of reading the data from the login, we use array. Same procedure we have to follow here. Okay, not data. This is an array. Will be written an array. So because this is a any type. Because ultimately the JSON is converted into array itself. Okay. So email password validity. So now what we need to do? Same email, we can pass it here. Instead of data.email, just email. Same like how we have done JSON, same thing. Password. And here also just email. Because we grab the data in the form of an array in individual variables. So here also validity. So I'm converting this validity lowercase so that sometimes if the validity you provided passed or failed in uppercase characters, so it won't affect. So I'm just before comparing, I just converted into lowercase. That's it. So very simple, guys. We need to just use this external module XLSX and we grab the path, workbook, sheet names and worksheet. And once you get the worksheet, you can pass it inside this function XLS utils.sheet to JSON. This will actually convert this entire worksheet into JSON format. Once the data is available in the JSON format, JSON array actually. JSON also we have a array. If I look at the JSON previously, whatever file we have, This is my JSON. You can see this is the actual data is a part of the JSON array. So this bracket is representing JSON array. So we grab this data in the JSON array and storing them in 3 different fields: email, password, validity, and we are just passing them into multiple places wherever it is needed. That's it. So this is how we can do data-driven testing using Excel. Prerequisite is what? We need to install this XLS X module. So now let us run this. So param test 5 xls.spec.ts. Okay, now it is getting failed. Const data records. Okay, we haven't changed that looping statement. So this is, sorry, just a second. XLS spec dot, we have not changed something. Worksheet. So in the looping statement, where is the loop? Here we specified. Okay, so this is the login data. Okay. Email password validity. So we grab this. Email and password is also fine. Test. Have we used the record somewhere? Okay. This is valid. We have user somewhere actually. So this is a records is not defined, it is saying. Okay. Let me run once again. Clear. There is something is missing in this. Okay, so let me read once again. So this is the data we retrieved. So till it is fine. So if you want to print this login data, you can say console dot, let's print the data first. We'll see whether it is retrieving the data or not. So this will actually print the login data once it is converted into JSON format. So after that, describe email password validity of, this is a for loop. Email and password, I think here there is a problem. Email password, and we are clicking on click. Validity also we are getting. I don't see any problem. So let me just try to save the file and run it once again. It's not able to save, probably some, yeah, we haven't removed this actually, sorry. We just copied into the loop, but we haven't removed that. Okay. Right, so let us save the file and run it once again. Yeah. So now you can see I just printed the data in JSON format. Now it is started data-driven test. So now it is reading the data from Excel and keeping into the JSON, and now through JSON it is doing data-driven test. So this is the simple way we can work with the Excel. So there are different ways are there, but this is a very simple and best way to deal with the Excels most of the times. Even if you are working with API testing also, most of the times we do the same approach, even if it's a CSV file or Excel or JSON file, whatever it is. So ultimately all my tests are successfully executed and my passed. Okay. So this is how we need to work with the Excel. This is all parameterization concepts. So we can directly hard code the data inside the test using either single dimensional array or 2-dimensional array, or you can read the data from JSON or CSV or Excel file. And CSV for Excel, we need to install third-party libraries, but JSON, we don't need to install any third-party libraries. By default, we have a support in JavaScript and TypeScript. Okay. So that's it for data-driven testing and parameterization concept in Playwright. So do practice, a lot of practice is required. So I will share all the files, test data files along with the examples, do one round of practice and get familiar with the data-driven test and parameterization concept. All right. So that's all for today's class. We'll stop here and we'll continue in the next class.